Ingrid, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Caroline. It's so nice to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to get a chance to talk to you. I was very interested when I saw your work online and I saw the prolificness of all of the things that you're doing, and you're involved in different venues, and you're also involved in installation pieces, which I found really, really interesting. So I want to get to a point where we talk about some of those as well
Oh,
as
yeah.
what you're doing for your paintings. But before I start grilling you with questions, let's take a moment and I'd love for you to describe your art journey and how you arrived to where you currently are with your art.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. Well, I wanted to be an artist since I was five. At least that's as far as I can remember. I just drew all the time. I actually made little books when I was that age. And so that was pretty much all I ever wanted to do. And I pursued that. When I got into college, I got a BFA and in painting and oil painting specifically, that was the direction I was going. And then when I got into grad school, I went to Maine College of Art, and they didn't want you to specify a medium. They wanted you to work in whatever medium you felt would bring your message across. At the time, they were like, just be open to new things and try installation art and try performance art, because why not? So that was different, but they were all about getting you out of your comfort zone. So I think that was really good. And that is when I got into installation art and doing actually some more sculptural pieces. Um, so when I got out of grad school, I had been building these cardboard houses, and they were kind of like dollhouse sized. And then I would make all these interiors, and they have little tables, and like I had a studio one, and I have one that sits on my desk actually all the time. I can maybe show you right here.
I see. Yep.
Um, but yeah, so I was doing that for a while, although they're very, very time consuming.
Hmm.
And then I would photograph them out in the world. So I would try to get photographs so that it looked like you were sort of looking in through the window, or you could see the outside world through the windows of my cardboard houses. So kind of play with your senses of what was real and what wasn't. When you could see sometimes the cardboard texture. So I don't know. I did a barn that looked pretty sweet actually, and I took it out to fields near my house. And anyway, so I was doing that for a while. Um, I think sort of around the time that well, my first son was born, I slowly just kind of got out of the cardboard house business because it was time consuming, and I don't know. I know I just didn't work as much when on my art when my kids were little. I was trying to take them out to the park and to the library and to story time and just a discovery museum, and do all the things that you do with little kids. And then I started getting into children's books, but with colored pencils. They're like watercolored colored pencils. And then at some point, which I think was in 2020, when I started to have a little bit more time, like work gave me some time off, and I was just home more, and I started getting back into the watercolors, and they were nice because they're not fumey, they're easy to clean up. It's not like the oils, it's just this whole process. So I could really paint a lot of paintings quickly, and that was really nice and satisfying. So then I did get into the children's books. Actually, people had told me for many years, well, your work looks like it's telling a story already. So the first book from my series, the Three Little Birds series, it developed organically that way. Like I had all these paintings, and I started painting these little birds, and then I realized that there was a story there. So I decided to write a story about them, and then I made more paintings to finish the story off. So that was how the first story came about, and then I did a few more about the three little birds and their adventures. So I have a series of four at this point, and I'm thinking I might do another one. But I also do other series, like I'll just kind of get stuck on something. Like I did a climate change series. I did one about the war in the Ukraine. I did a cityscape series, and then I got into this stained glass animal series. And so a lot of the series, I'll kind of take a pause, and I'll do some other things, and then I'll get back to that and I'll be like, oh yeah, that cityscape was fun. I'm gonna do some more like that. And then but there'll be something different. So
So do you self-publish? How do you sell your books? Tell me about how you turned what you found a passion in with your fine art. You know, the houses were getting to the point, like you said, where it felt probably a little too much like work, given the stage of life you were at with your kids.
right.
How did you transform the new area that you were passionate about into something you could sell? How did that go?
I do self-publish. That's what I've been doing. I have a process that's it's kind of cumbersome, but it's so far been working for me. Where I self-publish through blurb.com. And but they're expensive to order books from. So then they send you the PDF of the book. So then you can take that and get it printed somewhere else. So that's sort of what I've ended up doing. I'm thinking into getting into Amazon. This
Hmm.
seems to be what a lot of people do with the Kindle publishing. I don't like that. I feel like it's just surrendering to like the corporate giant or something. But I have a lot of the books on hand that I've ordered because I've done Kickstarter. So I'll do a Kickstarter for my book for like a book launch and be like, okay, this is my new book. I'll bring it around to work. I'll post it on social media. I'll show everybody. I'll do little excerpts of me reading the book and get people interested
Where do
in
you do the
helping.
excerpts?
Um,
Like, do you do them on social or do you do them in person?
on social media, yeah.
Okay, what platform do you use for that? Because that's really interesting.
Oh, well, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Although my YouTube channel is newer and I don't get on there as much as I should because it's harder to build those YouTube videos because I it's just a different format and everything, but I'm trying to do more of them.
So, when you build the format with the social media for the videos, do you do them live with your phone? Do you do one video with or without the phone and then use the same video for the other formats, or are you replicating your efforts on each different platform?
Well, I record on my phone, but definitely not live. I'm an introvert,
Me
so
too.
not really all about the live videos. Um, but yeah, so I'll do the video. So when you do a Kickstarter, they ask you for a video. So I think that's sort of how I
Okay.
got into that in the first place as far as the book goes. Also, one of my coworkers, he's got kids too, and he's like, well, I want to see the book being read or I want to listen to you reading it or whatever. So I was like, oh, okay. So, but then I think the second one, maybe I didn't read the whole book because I'm like, well, I don't want to give the whole thing away and then nobody feels they have a reason to buy it. Although children's books are a little different, I think. Or it's still nice to have the book and have the illustrations and share it with your child. It's not really
Well, and it becomes
enough
kind of
just to
a
hear it once.
that's right. I mean, we used to read Skippy John Jones all the time, and I absolutely love those books.
Oh, my kids were really into those too.
Oh yeah, and certain ones. And there's one a book called Jubal's Wish, which we got through a homeschooling program that my kids were doing through a charter school at the time in California. And so each book that they loved would be a tradition then because we would sit down every night and they'd want to hear that book. So I think that you're right that they still are going to want that physical book because they want to sit with you and have the experience and the memories of you reading it to them.
Right, right. That's a good point.
So then so you make your video for Kickstarter and you record on your phone. And then do you edit on your phone or do you edit your stuff on a laptop or desktop?
I don't think I really edited the video so much. I recorded it and like if it didn't come out right, I would just record it again. I'm not very tech savvy.
That's good practice, though. I've done that, and you end up getting really good at your subject matter.
Yeah.
So then, where did you sell the book? I mean, did you sell it on your website?
I do have a website.
Okay.
It's called itstimeforart.com. And I talked about it on social media a lot, and I've sold some through people I've met on like on Facebook and that sort of thing. Um, Selling things directly through Facebook hasn't worked for me. Some people seem to be able to do it, but I find that all of the people that contact me out of the blue are scammers. So I have to be really careful with that because there's no one seems to be genuine that approaches you that way.
You have
It
to
has to
be.
be someone that you built up a rapport with at first, at least, you know.
I agree. And you have to be really careful, like you said, with those types of things. And I will put a link in the show notes to a couple episodes I have about being scammed as an artist.
Hmm.
So, because as soon as somebody asks you, can we jump, if you're in a platform where there's a shopping cart, and I was on Etsy and somebody jumped in and they said, can we just go to email and we'll just communicate? And I thought, you know, I said, okay. And I thought, well, we'll see how this goes. And it was a scammer.
Hmm.
And what I did, because I discovered pretty quickly that, they were like, oh, I'm going to send you a check. And I thought, they said, I don't care
Yeah.
what painting you send me. I just need a painting for my anniversary. And I thought these people will never send me a check, right? Send me a $900 check in the mail. And they're like, oh, I overpaid. So can you just send me a check back? And I'm like,
Right. Yeah, I'm familiar with this scam.
oh yeah, I have it framed actually. There's two of them. And people go, oh, are those the two, your first
$900
sales?
check.
And I
That's
said, no,
funny.
it's the first time I got, somebody tried to scam me, and I recorded the entire conversation and I put it on a podcast and they sent me not one, but two checks, overpayments in the same amount with the same exact check number. So it was fascinating.
Oh,
Yeah. And then I
wow.
interviewed a former director of cybercrime at the FBI, and we talked about scammers and how to watch out for them. So
Hmm.
it's a problem. It's important to really, as an artist, keep your wits about you
Right.
and not get so caught up in, oh my gosh, somebody wants my art, because you're already worthy. We don't have to look to
Right.
somebody trying to buy your art to prove that you're a good artist. And it can get a little bit mesmerizing when somebody's really pursuing you and saying, I love this, I want your art,
Yeah.
I want your art, because that's how they come at artists. It can be
Right.
very,
Well, the last
very,
one that I mean, I've gotten a lot better at identifying them, you know, so that I can avoid them. But the last one seemed to be an art collector. Like when I looked him up, like he seemed to check out. Like he was
yeah.
on LinkedIn, he was on
Wow.
you know, he's on a bunch of things. So this guy is there is a guy named this I can't remember what his name is, but he's an actual art collector. But this wasn't him. I think
He
is
was
what it is.
impersonating the
He was
art collector.
impersonating someone who had all the credentials.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, it was the same kind of thing. I was like, well, I have them on my website. Oh, I don't want to buy through a website. I want to buy, you know, I just want to work with you, and I have to send you over to my payment my payment manager, right? I
Oh
know
yeah.
it sounded very fishy. I knew that there were lots of red flags, but I was like, well, we'll just see if we can find where this is going. And I just wanted to kind of really sniff him out and know that he was a scam
Oh yeah.
you know, and it's best, I think, especially as an artist, you want to sell to people that you know or you have met, or like at art fairs. I've sold some books at art fairs. I've sold books to like coworkers and friends. People have come in and bought them from me at Home Depot where I work, my day job. Sometimes during the Christmas season because they know they can find me there. So that works, but it's slow. It's a slow way of selling books.
Well, and you know what though? You're working on your process, you're perfecting how you get those books put together and marketed out there, and you're doing Kickstarter so that you're not fronting all the money where maybe you're irresponsibly going into debt because you're thinking, I'm an artist, I have to get out there. It's like I
Right.
can't
No.
slow down and figure this out. You have a system so that you have investors in your talent, right, through Kickstarter,
Hmm.
and you're doing this thoughtfully and mindfully, and all of this is important. And it's better. You're doing it building relationships. Most of my listeners have day jobs. They have other things they're doing or side gigs while they're building their art careers.
Yeah, it's really hard not to have that.
And it depends. Some people don't have to do that, and that's wonderful. But I want the listeners out there to know It doesn't matter what your art journey looks like. It's your journey and it's valid and you are an artist. I don't care if you're drawing. I knew a grade schooler who was just really creative and really talented, and she loved these felt tip pens. I actually have a lot of these. They come in all different colors. They're paper mate, and I love these little things. She would draw on toilet paper. Like she just liked how it absorbed the ink.
Hmm.
And she would make these beautiful little mosaics, and her mother would frame them. And I'm like, you do you, girl. I mean, I don't know what she's doing now. I lost touch with her. That was in another state in the Midwest, but
Hmm.
talented young lady. So it doesn't matter if you are where you want to be yet. I think that you're finding your way and your system. And it's inspiring. So now you're doing the illustrations. You've described them as whimsical,
Oh, yes.
vivid. Tell me about that style and where you get your inspiration.
Um, so I guess I have a pretty vivid imagination, but different things will inspire me. And like one series will kind of lead into another. So like my cityscape series, a friend of mine, like an old friend from high school, had me design a band poster because he was working like in the music industry and he knew this band and he thought my work would be good for band posters. So I did create a band poster, and so he bought that, and that was great. And I didn't have to send him the original because he didn't need it. He just needed a good scan of it, to use to make it into posters. And so then he said, "Well, I've got all these sketches, and I'd be interested in having you turn one of them into a painting." And so we had different sketches of different things, and a couple of them were sort of cityscape-ish. And I really liked one of them, and I was like, "Yeah, I think I can make this into a painting." So I turned it into my first cityscape painting. All the architectural sort of things, that's not usually the way I work. But after I'd done a bunch of these cityscapes, it got easier and easier and easier. And so, yeah, it turned into a whole series. And I have like 12 of them as a series. And it's like there's five that are sort of the original type. And then I did sort of an offshoot where it was like this city versus country. And then there's four more that are sort of like the later series and so they all have sort of the same background, which is very atmospheric and a lot of color, but not super bright, kind of light and airy. When I was in grad school, they had this mantra: work comes from work. I think, I don't know. They're just like,
Work
keep
begets
working,
work.
do more work, and more ideas will come. And it is true. Like if you just stop because you can't think of anything, then you get stuck. It's better to just keep doing something, even if it's bad. Just keep churning it out. Eventually, the good ideas will flow, and you'll be on a run again.
Yes, absolutely. I always tell my students that inspiration doesn't come from sitting and waiting for it to hit you in the face. It comes from doing the work. You start your
Right.
work and then the inspiration comes. It's actually the reverse from what most people think. And so it's important to remember that because it can be very discouraging if you think that as an artist, you're just supposed to have this built-in inspiration meter that's just going to go off at random hours and give you great ideas. Sometimes that happens, but it usually doesn't happen without a regular practice. And
Right. Right.
and for me, I do try to pursue that with meditation. So, and exercise and things that allow my brain to just kind of go offline a little bit so that I
Makes
can
sense.
kind of hear the creative ethers or whatever you want to call it. So the ideas can come and I can recognize them when they hit. And it's also important to write them down immediately when they hit or record
Yes.
them in some way. How many
Right.
times have you and I said, "Oh, well, that's a great idea. So it's so obvious to me right now because it's an epiphany and it seems so like angels and
Yeah.
puppies with rainbows." And 5 minutes later, you're
It's
like, "What was
gone.
that idea? It was so good." And you've got to just take that second, even if you think you're going to remember it, just write it down, do a voice record, something.
Right.
Your phone will do that for you. Just tell your phone to save it, save a reminder. I mean, they're more than happy to jump in and say, "What would you like me to remind you about?" And actually, props to Mike Hyatt, productivity guru. I am a devoted disciple of Evernote. And so in Evernote, there's a free version, you can save notebooks under different topics, and then you can add notes to your notebooks. And you can
Hmm.
include photo clips and screen clips and links and all kinds of good stuff and bookmarks so that you have topics on different subjects. And so it's cloud based. When I'm at work, if I want to hop on Evernote, I can just do it online. I can go to Chrome and just get online with Evernote. And all the notes that I put in that morning from my Mac or even my phone, I have an app on my phone for Evernote too, they're still in my system. So these are good ways to record those ideas. Now, you have done a great job balancing work, family life, and returning to your art pursuits after your kids got, as you said, a little bit older. And also, you have talked about on YouTube through interviews using your art to create installations that are, I think, healing for you in some aspects. Can you talk about the ways that you balance art with your life and you get into these creative venues that allow you to use your art kind of therapeutically for a really positive outcome?
Sure, yeah. There's actually a couple of installation projects I did this year. So one of them was called Lunch Notes, and it was at the University Art Gallery in Mount Pleasant. It's like near where I live. And there's this nonprofit art business called Art Reach, and they do this art walk every year. So it's like an art contest that is similar to Art Prize in Grand Rapids, which I will talk about as well because I was also in that. But so Art Walk is more local. And so anyways, Lunch Notes, what my project was. So I got this watering can, like an old sort of timey looking metal watering can, and I strung a fishing line through all the holes, and then on the fishing line I attached these lunch notes because every morning I get up and I make lunch notes for my kids. Um, Actually, recently, well, when my older son got into middle school, he decided he didn't need me to make him a lunch anymore, which was sort of traumatic for us both
Been there.
because it's a change. And so there was a lot of tears, and my husband had to like step in and mediate. And so then in the end, we decided that I would continue making him notes, but they would be like breakfast notes because he eats breakfast every morning. I make him breakfast every morning, so I just give him his lunch note with his breakfast is like a breakfast note. But I think of them still as lunch notes because it's easier. So in any case, so all of these lunch notes are raining down from the watering can, which is suspended overhead in the gallery. And then I have these baby quilts. So one for each kid, and then one that was my baby quilt. And so they're like a square on the floor, like layered on top of each other and a little bit mussed up maybe. And I've got their lunch bags and their water bottles and just more lunch notes all piled on top of everything. And it was really cool looking piece. And so there was a group of college age girls that came in, and they all were looking at my piece, and one of them read my artist statement, and then she burst into tears. And
Yep. I'm like,
and
that would have wrecked me as a
her
mom.
friends were just like, patted her on the back and they were comforting. And I mean, I was wondering if she was seeing it from the other perspective, like she's going off to college and leaving her, I don't know, but
Probably. Yeah, well, I remember when my older son, I think it was, said that, I love you, mom, and I don't need you to write smiley heart faces on my napkins anymore for my lunch. And I was like, okay. I hear you,
oh,
sister.
great. Well, my lunch notes are they're a little I could show you if
Yeah.
that's okay. I could show you some. Hang on. I get pretty involved here. So I don't know. They're just like I've been doing
They're
movies.
illustrations, they're drawings.
They're little illustrations,
Oh,
like
I love
movies
the
we've watched.
robots. I love the
Um,
robots.
this Gizmo.
Gizmo.
So they're good practice for me too. And then I just write normal stuff like Happy Tuesday, hope your day's going well. But the notes, like the drawing part of the note is a drawing. So they're pretty fun. So
Those
anyways,
are
they're all raining
beautiful.
down and it's the whole idea of this nurturing and yeah, you
You
get the
know, you could
idea.
you could take those all and you could turn, I mean, not the ones that aren't copyrighted. Um, you could take those drawings and you could make like a day a year calendar out of your notes and you could print those, have them gummy binded and sell them as like, you rip off a page a day. You could do something like that. Like the 23rd has a picture with a robot and a heart and
Oh, yeah.
chocolate
A
milk or
lot of
something.
them are from things that might be copyrighted, though, I guess.
Okay. But it's, things like that. There are a lot of different out of the box ways to use all that creative energy. And you do a really good job of that.
Well, thanks.
Did you want to talk about the prescription bottles or?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. So, Art Prize is this big art contest in Grand Rapids, that I think a lot of people know about, at least in Michigan. But it's people actually come from other countries, other states. Like there was a guy next to me who was from New York. And last year, I remember there was a girl from Denmark, I think. So anyways, it's this big art contest. Grand Rapids just does this whole thing and like lots of different venues will host artists. And so you go and you put your art up and you can win prizes, you can win some big money. I never have. I was supposed to get votes, and it's hard to get a lot of votes when you don't live in Grand Rapids because it's helpful to be there every day, which I definitely can't do when it's an hour and a half drive. But so in any case, I was at DeVos Convention Center, which is a big venue and a lot of people come through it. So that was really great. It was actually my second time being there. And I had done an earlier piece, which I also had done at Art Walk in the University Art Gallery. So that's kind of my other, I guess, favorite spot to have my art. But so the first piece was called When You Look at Me, Can You Tell I'm Sick? And so there was 10 medicine cabinets, and I stenciled those words across the medicine cabinets. And behind the medicine cabinets were these banners, these photocopied, well, they're banners that I had made, at UPS where they, print things. So I had photocopied my husband's poetry. My husband has bipolar disorder. He got diagnosed when I was in grad school. Like I kind of ripped him away from his comfort zone and all the people he knew. I was like, let's go to grad school. Let's move to Maine. But we were moving back to Maine. That's where we met. We were high school sweethearts. That's where my family still lived. But yeah, it was not the best thing for him. So he was going through all this process of getting diagnosed and getting the right pills and all of that. So in any case, the poetry was like poetry he wrote during a mania where he was just writing poetry, and it's all sort of scrawly and crazy looking. And I thought it was a good backdrop for the medicine cabinets to help get that feeling across. And then the medicine cabinets were full of empty prescription bottles that I had collected over the years that were his. So this newer piece, I was telling everybody because I did go and talk about my art at DeVos. So just anybody that was coming by, I went on a Saturday. It was like the first Saturday that the show was open, and so I talked to a lot of people. So this piece is called Still Here, and so it has five medicine cabinets that say, "Can you tell I'm sick?" And it has the 5 banners for 5 of the banners, and the banners start coming down the wall like stair stepping and coming onto the floor. Just to give this sort of unhinged, sort of disheveled look of things falling apart. And then there's prescription bottles that I made out of these giant 7-gallon orange buckets with white lids that I had to order from Uline, this commercial company. Because it was hard to find something that looked like a big prescription bottle that was affordable.
That was a good idea.
Yeah, it was perfect. They looked really good. Actually, I made a TikTok video of me putting the labels on the giant prescription bottles with music. It's a time lapse of me doing that, and it went completely viral. It has like 86,000 views, or I don't know.
Wow.
That's a lot of
Send
views.
me the link to that. I'll put it in the show notes. Now, did you use any tags or anything for people to see that, to get it out there, or you just put it up?
I just put it up. I mean, I use some hashtags, um, but I mean, I post on TikTok all the time, and this was the only one that's really hit like that. So it was crazy. Just I don't know. It was interesting to people, I guess, and
Well,
um,
it's a really interesting way to process what you're going through and your experience with supporting your spouse while he's walking on his journey. I think it's a really therapeutic angle to take by integrating your art. So I think you probably resonated with a lot of people that, you know, they felt understood, I think, by you sharing that.
I do think I resonated with a lot of people, but both the times that I did the medicine cabinet pieces, I got a lot of really good positive feedback. I shared stories with people, they shared stories with me. It was very nice. I did want to mention too with the prescription bottles. So they've got the labels, and then one of them's tipped over, and I made giant lithium pills. So there was two, and they're coming out onto the lid. And so that was part of the whole idea of still here, is that it's this continual process. So mental health, you get the diagnosis, you get on the right prescriptions, and that's a process in and of itself. But then you have to continue taking the medication. You can't stop taking it because you think you feel fine.
Yeah.
So it's just this ongoing thing. So that was sort of my whole point with that. And the thing with the medication and like only two left is that sometimes because of like the insurance or the doctor didn't give us a prescription and they needed to, there's all these different pieces of the puzzle where something can go wrong, and suddenly you're out of this medication that you really need, and your day is ruined, or your week is ruined, or you're going to this deep dark depression. So there's just a little bit of a delicate balance that you just have to constantly maintain.
You do. You have to be really vigilant. And it has ramifications that, like you said, they go days and weeks sometimes. If, you know, especially for example, teens, I'm going to give example of teens with ADHD, right? So if you have a kid on this medication and you have to call it in every time you need it
Right.
because it's a controlled substance. And also because, especially with certain medications like Adderall, where people are taking advantage of this drug, like for example, selling it.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe they have extra and that they shouldn't have because they're gaming the system and they're selling it. And so, you try to call your doctor and you get treated like a criminal and then you can't
Mm-hmm.
get your refill, or this potential for the pharmacy not to be able to get the drug because they're
Right. Sometimes
short
they
on
run out.
supply,
Yep.
and it's surprise, surprise. And then you're going to have to find another pharmacy and transfer a prescription. And, you can't call those things in until right up until just about within a week of when you need them. So it can get
Mm-hmm.
dicey. And I think these things, this is a reality that it's, it's not something to judge the person who is living this
Right.
because they're going through it. I think it's very, very important and commendable now that people are talking about these things. And that I think is why it's resonating. And I'm really proud of the art community for really taking up a banner and leading this charge of, hey, this is a great venue with which to put these things out there and talk about them and bring them out of the taboo closet of, oh, we don't talk
Right.
about that. I think
Right.
this is great. So I was really happy to see that installation, and I would love to have you send me that link for TikTok.
Oh, yeah, I will do that. Oh, you know what's funny? Actually, also, my husband, he went to Art Prize and he saw my piece. And like he was like, "Oh, that's my name," because it's on the prescription label on
And
the
that's my
giant
prescription
pills.
information. Is he okay with us talking about this on the show?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
Yeah, no, he was fine with it. He thought the piece was really great. I did actually have a lot of people that had concerns about, oh, you're using the Walgreens logo. Well, aren't you worried about that? Oh, you're putting your information out where people can see it. And well, what are they going to do exactly? Track me down? Why? Because I mean, it's an
Well, you
art
probably didn't
piece.
have your prescription numbers on there and stuff, so.
It's an art piece.
Okay. Well, again, I think it's commendable to bring it up and put it out there. Um, okay, so how do you deal with the issues of selling your art? So if you have something at a show or at a fair or
Mhm.
something online, tell me which venues you tend to be most productive at in selling your art and how you come up with your pricing. Do you have any issues with people asking about pricing where maybe you're not sure how to answer them, or is it all, do you have it all worked out?
Well, I've been doing a lot of art fairs, although I think technically they're mostly craft fairs because I'm learning there are differences. And so the craft shows are smaller and it's harder to make a lot of money there. People are looking for less expensive things. So I'm trying to get more into the juried art fair circuit. But it's very expensive and the booth fees are very expensive. And some of these shows expect you to have a really expensive tent also. And so I'm not quite there yet. Like I'm hoping I can do a couple, kind of dip my foot in the water and maybe my toe, just see what it's like, see if I can handle it. Um, I feel like I'm finally starting to learn. Things are working better for me. Like the last few art fairs, craft fairs, whatever you want to call them that I've been to, I've done well, and it feels as though it's moving in a positive direction. I mean, I've tried a lot of different things. With I've tried this like an antique fair where it did okay but not great. I did this flea market. It's huge. There's tons and tons of people there, tons and tons of booths, and it's a really interesting environment. So it's the Amish flea market. It's an Amish quilt auction and flea market.
Hmm.
And the Yoders are the people that run it, and there's a large Amish population around me, anyways, and they have this huge flea market, and tons of people go to it.
I think I know that one. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now, Ian, you had good luck there, or?
Um, So I didn't have great luck, but I have noticed that my customers or my potential customers, like when they see my art, they're like, "Oh, like you can see it kind of come over their face," and so that's fun to watch when you connect with someone or they connect with your art, and they stop and then they come in and they look at everything, and sometimes they still don't buy anything, which is frustrating, or sometimes they buy something small, when they like it, they want to help you out, but they just don't have the money to buy a painting. I did an art fair, which was more of an art fair and less of a craft fair up in Escanaba. And I
Hmm.
did really well there. I won a Best in Show award for painting and drawing. And I
Waterfront
sold
Festival?
the Waterfront Art
Yeah,
Festival. No, I
yep,
did
that's
really
my
well there.
adopted hometown. That is where I live.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
Excellent. So you had luck at the Waterfront Festival. It's a beautiful festival.
I did, yeah. And I could see that the caliber of art was different there. It's definitely better. And people, you know, there's not all the crafts. Like around here, the crafts fairs, people are selling a lot of crocheted items. Crocheted like stuffed animals and crocheted other things are very popular. And there's so much jewelry. And I make jewelry too. And everybody's got their own thing. And it's tough. I mean, but I'm having better luck there. And then sometimes I sell my books there, which is nice. I haven't been having great luck at selling art in galleries lately, but I don't know. I don't know if that's because the art scene is changing or I'm just in the wrong galleries or my art is not right. I mean, I don't know what it is. Um,
Well, it might be a mismatch with, as you said, where you're going to. I don't think that, well, I know I'm biased as an artist, but I'm not willing to step in and say your art is not right. I think
no, I didn't
for the
mean that. I was
venue,
being
I think you meant
facetious.
for the venue you're in. But those are important questions that have to be asked if you're wanting to sell your art at a certain price point and you find it's not moving to the volume that you expect or you want, to ask, not is my art good enough, but am I in the right place?
Right.
Does the price point match where I'm showing and those things? So I think you're right about that, to ask the questions and try to kind of bracket, how can I
And I've
improve
tried
the
different
odds?
things with that,
Hmm.
to try and find, because pricing is hard.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yes.
I think I tend to underprice my art. However, I do need to price it at a price where it will sell. So I'm trying to sort of balance with, what will people around here be willing to pay for my art? And am I making my costs? Am I making enough profit so that I can keep going and make more paintings? Maybe it's not the price I would like to be getting for my paintings, but we'll get there, I think, if I keep working at it.
Do you sell your paintings on your website?
Not yet. I mean, they're for sale on my website, but I haven't sold any from there yet.
The reason I asked the question is because I struggled with pricing until I got my art storefront's website pulled together. Now it hasn't launched yet. It's going to launch in the next 2 weeks. But what I found was that my personal struggle with valuing my art versus what I thought I could sell it for was taken care of for me, because when I set up the art storefront site, they explained to me, this is a site where you can have people order prints of your work. So if they like this painting, but they don't want to buy the original, they can't afford the original, something like that, they can order a print, which is
Mm-hmm.
great. It gives them another price point. However, you need to decide as the artist, this is what I was told, the different sizes that you're willing to offer this piece. And so once you decide, you have to price the original, of course, at a respectably higher price than the most expensive option for a print of that piece, because
Right.
people can't say, well, gosh, I can get the original for cheaper than the print. So even if the print is this big and the painting is this big, you can make some adjustments in there. You can say, okay, well, the original is this big, so I'm not going to sell it for maybe an outrageous amount because it's an original, but you have to factor in the price of that larger
Mm.
print. And what I found as an artist, because this was such an area of angst for me, where I felt like I was mired in the worthiness aspect and the value of my creativity and my effort and my skill, and all these things came down on my head where I
Mm.
felt so, it felt so heavy for me to deal with. All of that went away when it became a math equation. And I
Mm.
love that, where
Mm-hmm.
it just became, I found that I had to go through, in preparing to launch my site, all my paintings and go, okay, I need to set prices for all my paintings. And all I had to do was look up the highest price point that a buyer could get for each piece, and then figure out based on that where it was going. But it automatically put me from, say, valuing my paintings here to here. Not because I'm thinking who I am and all that, but because somebody can buy a print for here.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very freeing. I did not expect that. My rep actually called me and said, my rep at Art Storefronts, he
Mm-hmm.
said, your prices are way too low. And I said, what do you mean? I just want to start moving these paintings. And he said, yeah, but you have to go by the highest price that people will pay based on the print. And it's got to be higher than that. It was a big relief to me. It was extremely freeing to just, it took all of that away.
I've looked
So
into art storefronts.
I thought that was really cool. That was a nice surprise.
I I think I determined that they were too expensive for me.
Yeah, they are not cheap. They are not cheap. And my site isn't launched yet. I promise my listeners I will be giving them an update. So this is not a paid endorsement or anything. Site's not up yet, but so far so good as far as functionality, ease of use, and it was a commitment financially.
Mm.
Um, but I also had a pretty involved website before that I had tried to do my own storefront, just cobbling together third-party integrations like Shopify. But I was having to do all of that on the back end myself.
Mhm.
And creating the website the way that it looked at the time required extra plugins and a theme and all of these
Mhm.
things for WordPress and
I'm very familiar with that.
the hosting, everything. So the overall price per year, I don't want to say it was the same as art storefronts because it's not. It was probably maybe half to do it myself, but I was also doing other things that I was able to let go of because I'm doing art storefronts now. So for me, it was an evolution of my process that I thought I'm going to try this and see where it goes because I wanted to permanently step into a place where it was all set up and I knew that it was set up right. For me, it was more of a thing of worrying about the taxes and keeping track of the back end, and the Shopify stuff was just really stopping me going, what if I screw this up? But anyway, the only reason I bring that up is here we're talking about pricing and what do I do and how much do I charge? And that was a refreshing aspect of doing this, I can say honestly, was them going, look, you just got to get higher than this number because you're already here as far as just supplies and frames and mats and all that. And I didn't expect it to take the psychological impact of dealing with all that combined with thoughts of the worth of my skill took all that away. So that was a nice surprise. Not everybody's going to have the same type of website or the same, want to sell prints right away or whatever.
The prints I sell, I have UPS make them. So
Okay, so
they're
you're doing some
they're
prints on your side.
mostly 8 by 10s, and I do some
Perfect.
11 by 14, but they're like on photo paper. So will they last forever? Probably not, but they will last a very long time. I mean, they're not archival prints. They're not on watercolor paper or print paper, special. Like I understand that that is a whole different process. And also people get into, like when you get to the juried art fairs, you're supposed to have numbered prints, right? Limited edition prints on like the archival paper. So I haven't gotten into that yet. My prints are affordable, and they're a way that the people that I see at my, craft fairs can buy them, and they sell well. People love my art, and it's colorful and it looks good. You can frame it easily. It's a start. It's not, where I want to be in the end, but
And that's an excellent point too, is I also am not starting out with limited editions because it was explained to me with the site that I'm working with now, as I mentioned, they said, by the way, if you do limited edition, we don't ship those directly to the customer. We ship them back to you
oh, because you have to
because
sign them and
you
number them.
sign them. A lot of artists add embellishments or maybe they go and paint back into them. And I think it's a great idea for the future. But
Hmm.
right now, in my mind, I've already allocated the financial commitment I'm going to do this year. And
Hmm.
I don't want to get to the point where, if somebody orders a print and it's a $50 print and then they ship it to me, now I'm going to be monkeying with it. And I'm
Hmm.
thinking, what if I screw it up? What if I spill my coffee on it? Yes, this is
Oh
something to
no.
do in the future. Like you said, there's places where we can grow, right? But for
Right.
me, I'm like, the last thing I need is to have this print paid for, shipped to me, and now I've got to pay to ship it out again, and I've got to not screw it up. So I'm just not ready yet. I'm just, it's a
Hmm.
process, just like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So I know we touched lightly on social media. How do you go about marketing your work? How do you, as an artist, get your artwork out there with your current involvement in shows, fairs, and online?
So I am very consistent in my social media presence. Every morning I try to post 2 reels and a good morning post that will go onto my Facebook, my Instagram, and I'll do like the videos or the reels or whatever on TikTok also. And some of them also get onto threads, so that's a whole other thing. So I'm trying to mostly be consistent, getting my work out there, showing people what I'm doing. If I have a show, I will shout it out. If I've painted a new painting, I will show them and I will tell them about it. I do a lot of time lapse videos where I'll be, painting something or drawing something, and those usually go over well. When I'm doing an oil painting, because I don't do those as often, I feel like I get a bigger response sometimes. Like the oil paintings take a long time, so it's very exciting when I finally finish one. So it'll sit in my studio for weeks as I'm working on it and waiting for the layers to dry, and then I'll work on it some more. And it's just this whole process. Um, but I think with social media that I'm growing my audience slowly and I'm building relationships with people because I have made some friends. I've made a lot of friends, and my follower accounts they're growing slowly. And Instagram, I feel like, has been the most difficult to grow followers, but I feel as though it's getting a little bit better, partly because of threads. And threads, I think I've started to figure out it's all about the conversations. So you can post an image, but it's more about what you're saying about the image, and people's reaction to that, where it will get a lot more responses. So sometimes if you have an issue or you have a question or you want to rant about something, or people giving advice, there's a lot of like artists on threads that give advice, like stop complaining about Instagram. This is what you need to do. Or I don't know, but those are interesting. Everybody's interested to know. Oh, stop complaining about Instagram. What should I do instead? So those get lots and lots of interactions. But yeah, I don't know. I think being consistent, being out there is important as an artist. It's the way the world is these days. And I try not to worry too much about the algorithm or whatever it is. I mean, it's hard not to, but I think I've gotten to a better place where I don't let it eat me up inside. Like, oh, my stats are all red on Facebook. I'm not gaining enough followers. It is what it is. I mean, it's going to shift at some point and it'll be green. And does it really matter either way? I don't think it does. I think just getting out there and being visible, and then people do see that you're making the work and it's out there. And I don't know. I found people like have followed me on Facebook. They'll talk to me at my shows. Like, oh, I know you on Facebook. Oh, great! But then they don't buy anything. I'm like, oh, all right, that's cool.
Well, and that brings up a good question. Are the people you're talking to on social other artists?
Oh, well, yes, a lot of them are. Some of them are business owners
Okay.
of various different types. So I have a business page on Facebook. I do have more followers on Facebook than any other platform. So we'll say that for sure. And I have made some really good friends on there. And sometimes people have really useful information, advice, that sort of thing. And I realized that when all of your followers are other artists, that they're not necessarily going to want to buy your paint, or they might want to, but they don't necessarily have the money because they're also artists,
Right.
and artists don't tend to be rich, unless they're very famous, I guess. Yeah, no, I realize that can be an issue.
I think
I've
it's something.
started,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh, I was just gonna say, I started using the hashtag art collectors, just hoping I'll get some art collectors out there who might be interested in my work.
That's a good idea. And I think it's something that artists should keep in mind that we don't always think of is in terms of it's natural for us to gravitate toward each other on social, but are we speaking to the people that we intend to have buying our work? So we can do both. Again, my website is in flux because it's transitioning right now from my old site. It's going to be my new site soon. So everything's kind of, you know, I'm not really ready to direct people to it to get in touch with all my social links because everything's being relaunched, but it will be ready soon. But when I post everything on the news site, I'm going to be telling our listeners because I want y'all to hit me up on social media because I got hacked a year ago while I was in the middle of grad school and I had to shut down Instagram and I lost my Facebook page. It was devastating.
Mm.
I mean, it wasn't the end of the world, but it was painful because I lost all my followers. And it was
I
through,
have a similar story.
oh, I mean, it kind of feels good to know I'm not the only one. I should have known better, but I just ended up clicking on something. I was busy and I
Hmm.
wasn't paying attention like I should have. But I'm definitely going to be asking my fellow artists to connect with me so that I can actually have you back For one reason, when I need to invite a guest to the show, often the first place that they look to check me out and see if I'm a scammer is Instagram. And I'm starting over with my Instagram followers. And so they're like, you have a podcast, but you have like less than 100 followers. That's because
Mm.
I just got back to building this thing like at the end of August. I just graduated school in July, and while working full time, it was nuts. So definitely going to need you guys out there listening to support following my social accounts, please. I need the boost so that you can get interesting listeners like Ingrid on the show. And I am interested when we talked about the difference between talking to this audience versus that. When you do your conversations in the morning, that's another aspect of your social. You talk about the morning update or the morning
Mhm.
greeting. Who are you talking to and where do you get your ideas from for those
Well, so I guess I'm talking to my followers, who are mostly friends, you know. I
artists?
mean, a lot of other artists,
Okay.
anybody that I guess is following my artistic journey, you know.
Because I did the
Um,
same thing, but I'm curious where do you get your ideas? I mean, this is really, people want to know other artists. They don't know where to start with this stuff.
so, well, I mean, on the Facebook business pages, a lot of people will do a good morning post, and most people, I think, will just say good morning, and maybe they'll have a picture of coffee or something, and I will, I try to post a new painting if I have one, or I'll post a painting that, an older painting that I haven't posted in a while if I don't have a new one. Or sometimes I post a photograph of me holding a painting or something that's happened recently. Like we had, Halloween just happened. So like I posted some pictures on my social media. Even though it's like mostly for about my art, like I posted me in a pirate costume. I posted pictures of my kids in their costumes. I mean, because people like that. And I think that people like that about artists, that they're people too, and they start to get interested in their lives outside of their art. And it all influences each other. I mean, you live your life and you get these ideas and then you turn them into your art, and it's this whole cycle.
It's a journey. Absolutely. I think that's great. And I'm glad to hear that you're doing that. I recently started doing that too through videos on my phone while I'm commuting because I have a commute and I
Oh.
had to think in terms of when do I have time to talk to my followers
Mm-hmm.
and what works with my life as it is right now. And I realized that there was bandwidth there, half an hour each way to and from work. And so
Mm-hmm.
if I had time to record a video, maybe I could do it during my commute. I mean, so long as it's hands free and, everybody's safe.
Right, of course. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I always wondered why so many people would record videos in their cars,
yeah,
but
I
that
think they're
that makes
making use
sense.
of that commute time.
Yeah, right.
So, and I think it's also a good time to actually be thinking, we drive and we're thinking about stuff, our art journey, whatever, life while we're driving. And it's actually, I found it to be a pretty easy way to record and just be talking to my audience. I don't know why, but it's working so far.
Mm.
Now, does TikTok, I'm not there yet. I have an account, but I really haven't dug into that one. Does that have a limit on the length of the video if you're not live? Like Instagram has a limit of 1 minute if you're not live.
TikTok, you can do longer format videos.
Oh,
I mean,
good. Okay.
they're yeah, because I am not sure how long you can do, but I haven't met my limit yet. I mean, I don't do a lot of long form videos, I guess. On YouTube, I'm exploring with that. Or I try to do maybe a whole time lapse, especially if it's a longer piece, and it'll start with the sketch, and then I do kind of an outline phase, and then I'll paint it all in, and it'll all be time lapse, and I'll start with a little intro, and I'll tell them what I'm going to talk about, and then I do the time lapse, and I do voiceover, and I'll sometimes I tell a story, or sometimes I talk about the painting that I'm working on, and maybe the ideas that went into it, and then at the end, when the painting's done, then I'll do like an outro, just okay, so this is what we talked about, and then my little
And now you said you do
boop.
these with your phone?
Um, well, so with YouTube, I do the recording on my phone. as far as me talking to the camera, or I have a canvas lamp and it's currently broken and I have to get with them because the light stopped working. But the canvas lamp was really wonderful because it holds your phone over your work surface and then you can
Okay.
paint or whatever, and it records. And you can record in horizontal like YouTube prefers. And so
Yes.
also have my phone on the
Landscape.
tripod in the landscape format, right? For the little intro where I talk, because I think it's nice. People like to see your face when you do a video. I think maybe not, but I think so.
I
And
think they
and then
do.
the painting aspect.
I think that's great. So it does both at the same
But
time?
I'll build it on my computer. So I have Wondershare, the program I
Okay.
use to put the whole video together. So that's why it takes so long, is I can't just do it all on my phone and be done. Like on TikTok, you can use some filters, or you can add music, or Instagram or Facebook. Like you can add music. I don't do a lot of filters or special effects. Sometimes I'll throw them in there, but usually I'm not really trying to do all of that. I'm just trying to like get my message across. I use the music a lot and a title, but on YouTube, I do more involved sort of video to try and make it look professional.
As an oil painter, it's hard for the tricky part is that I'm vertical. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not with the camera
Oh,
up here.
well, I do time lapse of my oil painting too, but then I put it on a tripod.
Right. And with the trick for me, I don't know if you've encountered this, maybe you can help me with this, is the tripod has got to be between me and the painting. And so I'm painting around a tripod.
Oh, no, I have it
Is it off to the
back where
side?
it can see me and maybe where my palette is, because I'm back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and the painting slowly builds.
So it's on an angle.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, maybe I just need to do that because I've gotten pretty good at painting around a tripod, but it's
Oh,
not easy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a struggle that I think a lot of artists work with. But yeah, I have there's other artists on TikTok that do oil paintings, and I don't know, people might have other,
We should do
you
a
know,
workshop on that or a
things that they
podcast at
do.
least.
Right.
Have some kind of discussion panel. Well, Ingrid, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with me and talk about your process and your creativity and your journey. I like to give my guests the last word. So please wrap us up with your best advice to artists who want to take their art career to the next level.
Well, I think the art fair circuit is not a bad way to go, and you can start small. Get yourself a basic tent, a table, and some kind of walls to put your art up on, and give it a try. Um, for me, lately, that seems to be what's working best. But I've been trying all the things, and I think the main thing is to just keep making art and get yourself out there in whatever way works best for you.